I come from the ivory tower, so I have a little bit of a different background. I'm going to tell you guys about some of my own research on motivating positive behavior change at work. And I'd like to start by telling you about an idea for helping people like Liz Lemon, the lead character on NBC's former hit show, 30 Rock. In case you aren't familiar with Liz Lemon's persona, let me give you a quick profile. Liz is a 30-something exec who works too much, exercises too little, and is generally a disaster when it comes to self-control. I'd like to make two plausible assumptions about Liz. First, assume Liz wished she exercised more but lacks the willpower. And second, assume she has a thing for thrilling novels but feels guilty wasting her time reading junk. I'm going to tell you about a solution to both of Liz's problems that I call temptation bundling. The idea is simple. What if Liz only allowed herself to read trashy novels while exercising at the gym? She'd stop wasting time at home on literary garbage and start craving trips to the gym to find out what happens next in her latest thriller. Not only that, but she'll enjoy her novel and her workout more combined. She won't feel guilty reading the novel, and time will fly at the gym. Now, temptation bundling isn't just a way to increase exercise and reduce wasted time, as important as those two problems are. It can solve many other problems as well. For instance, imagine only allowing yourself to go to the burger joint you crave while spending time with a difficult mentee. Or what, for the ladies in the room, if you only allowed yourself to get a pedicure while catching up on overdue work emails? Or to watch your favorite TV show while doing household chores? These are all examples of how temptation bundling can help us solve two willpower problems at once. But of course, an important question is, does it work? To find out, my collaborators and I ran an experiment. We recruited participants who wanted to exercise more, and we randomly assigned them to two groups. In one group, participants came to the gym, listened to the beginning of a tempting audio novel, and were told that if they wanted to hear what happened next, they would have to come back to the gym, where we would be locking that audio novel on an iPod in a monitored locker they could only access when exercising. A second group also came to the gym and was encouraged to exercise more, but instead of receiving a tempting audio novel, we gave them an equally valued gift certificate to Barnes & Noble. The temptation bundling group exercised more for the first 7 weeks of our study, which was really exciting. Then along came Thanksgiving break. Participants went home. Maybe they forgot about their novels. And when they came back, the effect was gone. On the one hand, this is neat because it suggests that wanting to know what happens next in your novel is driving our effects. But it also means we have more work to do to figure out how to re-engage people with the gym after breaks. Okay. Another big question we wanted to answer is whether or not people actually value temptation bundling. So at the end of our study, we asked participants whether or not they would pay us to take away iPods preloaded with tempting audio novels and lock them at the gym in a monitored locker so they could only access them when exercising. In other words, will they pay us to take away a possession they could otherwise use freely and restrict their access so they could only use it at the gym? And more than 60% of participants wanted us to take away their access to those tempting audio novels, suggesting lots of demand for this kind of service. So you can imagine a company like Netflix, let's call it Gymflix, that lets you set aside certain TV shows for gym-only access. My research suggests that a temptation bundling service like this and other temptation bundling services might be very popular. Okay, back to the question that I started with of how to promote positive behavior change at work. I've given you one answer, temptation bundling, but I've done research on lots of other solutions as well. One solution is that we can prompt people to form concrete plans about when they'll follow through on desirable behaviors. So I ran one experiment with a large Midwestern utility company that was holding free on-site flu shot clinics at work and wanted to encourage employees to take advantage of these. They typically sent out a standard reminder mailing to their employees, letting them know the dates, times, and locations of those on-site work flu shot clinics. And we experimentally compared these standard mailings with new mailings we designed that were nearly identical, but in addition, prompted employees to write down the specific date and time when they intended to get a shot. Now keep in mind, this is not an appointment card. You're not mailing this back to anyone. You're just filling this out in the privacy of your own home. but we thought that prompting people to form a plan would increase turnout by helping people think more carefully through when they intended to follow through on this behavior, embedding their plans more firmly in memory, and making it harder to procrastinate on their plans, because now doing so means breaking an explicit commitment to yourself rather than a vague intention. And indeed, that's what we found. We see more people are getting flu shots in our planning prompt reminder condition than in our standard condition. And this effect size is actually more than doubled at work sites with one-day-only flu shot clinics as opposed to multi-day clinics, because at those sites, the cost of forgetfulness and procrastination are particularly large. The two studies I've just told you about highlight exciting new ideas for how we can promote positive behavior change at work, but they also highlight the power of experimentation. Now, if my slide had worked perfectly, you would see little people up here getting randomly assigned to conditions. Oh, there we go. All right, they just arrived a little late. So we randomly assigned them in both of these cases in an experimental paradigm. These populations are randomly assigned to either a standard policy or a new policy. And what that means is the only thing that differs about the people in our experiments is what intervention they were exposed to. Because that's all that differs, we can draw strong causal inferences about any changes in behavior and what they're attributable to. We know that any changes we detect can only be attributed to the intervention we tested. Experiments like this should be used even more to test new ideas at work than they are now, because of how powerful they are for teaching us important new things. But another strategy I think is really exciting for testing new ideas at work is analyzing big data, and specifically using hypothesis-driven analyses of big data. I'm going to tell you about one study I did where we were able to take steps in the direction of changing outcomes at work through hypothesis-driven analyses of big data. And this was a study done with data on hospital caregivers' hand hygiene compliance decisions using a massive data set from a company called Preventix. Preventix uses RFID technology to track every time that hospital caregivers enter or exit patient rooms and whether or not they sanitize their hands. With this massive data set, millions of observations, my collaborators and I tested the hypothesis that over the course of a single work shift, fatigue might cause a decline in caregivers' compliance with hand safety regulations. And indeed, we saw a precipitous decline from the beginning to the end of a single work shift in these millions of observations. And in fact, this is actually even more pronounced the more intense the work shift. These findings have really big implications for patient safety and for healthcare costs. But without the kind of big data that organizations are increasingly collecting, it would never have been possible for us to shed light on this problem. Now, armed with this knowledge, we can begin thinking about solutions and interventions we can try to hopefully overcome it. This data also, though, points to the fact that our energy and motivation to pursue our goals and to do the things we know we should at work are not constant. There are some times when we're more motivated to do the things we should. And so then that begs the question, when are we most motivated to do the things we should, to pursue our goals and to pursue our aspirations? Not just within the course of a single day, but within the course of a calendar year. And this is another question that my collaborators and I have looked at with big data. An answer that might have immediately come to mind for you when I pose this question is the beginning of a new year. We know that at the beginning of a new year, people create resolutions and pursue their aspirations with particular vigor. And we think part of what's going on here is that at the beginning of a new year, we feel like we have a clean slate. All our failures are behind us, we can ignore them now, and we feel this renewed sense of energy and motivation to pursue our goals. And my co-authors and I have shown that it's not actually just the beginning of the new year when we have these fresh start feelings and renewed enthusiasm for pursuing our aspirations. It's also the beginning of a new week, a new month, following holidays, following birthdays. There are all these different cycles that provide fresh start feelings. In one data set, we showed that the frequency with which the same undergraduates visit the gym is higher at the beginning of a new week, a new month, a new year, a new semester, following school breaks, and following birthdays, with the notable exception of 21st birthdays. And I'll let you speculate as to why that might be the case. We also see these patterns when we look at Google searches for the term diet. They spike following these fresh start moments. And when we look at when people create goals on the popular goal-setting website, stick.com, where you can create a goal and put money on the line that you'll forfeit if you fail to achieve that goal. We see people create more goals at the beginning of a new week, month, year, following holidays, and following birthdays. So all this suggests that as we're thinking about when to promote aspirational behaviors at work, good times might be right after fresh starts. Let me wrap up by highlighting key takeaways. I hope you'll remember what I've said about the power of using randomized controlled experiments and hypothesis-driven analyses of big data to test new ideas about how we can improve things at work. And as you think about how to inspire positive behavior change in your organizations, don't forget to try temptation bundling, planning prompts, and fresh starts. Thank you very much.